I want to give Yoka a special welcome and very excited to talk about architectural body with you this morning. I was introduced to that concept years ago when I met the artists and architects that that Yoka worked with, Madeline Gids and Arakawa, who are quite famous and have very radical architecture, very radical ideas about reversible destiny. And I couldn't even really understand the ideas. They were too radical for me to even get my mind around. But Gene Genlin just jumped right in with them when he met them and said, wow, yes, of course, the body isn't what we think. The body is both the physical entity that we think of and the environment. The body is a living process, a living organism that includes the environment. And Yoka is going to be really explicating that today. So it's a very complicated philosophy and architecture that Yoka will tell you a tiny bit about, but this will be just a taste. And we're hoping that you'll get a different feeling for your body with this. I also want to say that Yoka is one of the team members of the Community Empowerment Project, and she is a focusing person and an artist and an architect of a very interesting ways of putting those together. Okay, Yoka.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm excited to, to share this idea about architectural body with you. So Lynn has told you most of what you need to know about me. And so I think I'll just, I'll talk a little bit about Arakawa and Ginz's work and philosophy, and then we'll start quite soon. We'll start doing some kind of experiential exercises to see if we can find our architectural body. Arakawa and Ginz were artists and became architects. They were always very interested in how people tick, what capabilities are of people. They started out with a big painting project called The Mechanism of Meaning. And the mechanism of meaning, that is you, that's the person. And in their paintings, they put up all kinds of questions and little also experiences, so that the persons were already interacting with these paintings. And then they were quite ambitious. They wanted to change people's lives, and actually they wanted to help extend people's lives. They had this idea that dying was no good, and we should try everything to prevent that and to live longer. And so they put everything into the works to help doing that. And they figured out that art wasn't gonna do it. They needed to go more three-dimensional and interactive, and so they became architects, or at least self-proclaimed architects. And so they invented a type of architecture that it was filled with what they called procedures. And these procedures would prompt the user in the space to not only physically, interact with the architecture, but also make a change inside themselves. For instance, they had one procedure was called the tentativeness cradling procedure, and it would make people more tentative, less sure of themselves, more flexible. One example was a room with shifting walls. The walls would go up and then shift and then go up. So you had two rooms in one. And another example is a bathroom with two toilets. And so every time you want to use the toilet, you had to think like, oh, shall I take this one or shall I take that one? So you always they felt people always had to have a choice. And they did everything to get people in conversation, in connection with their surroundings, with the architecture. And so that's where the term architectural body comes from. So your body is an architectural body is your own body plus the environment, and it's one entity, and there's always interaction between the two. So yeah, let's see. So I'm gonna well, let's slowly start into our experience, and then things will come up. For now, let's just tune into our body right here and now, and tune into it, and all the aspects of the surrounding of the place you're in right now, your room, whatever's there. Try to feel the space around you, the sounds that come in through the window or through the walls or whatever. Try to feel all of it, the temperature, like how your body relates to the walls. Even with your eyes closed, you can have a sense of that. And just go deeper inside your body. And just connect with whatever's around you, and also with all the parts of your own body, which is kind of a piece of architecture in itself. All its parts, its front of your body, back, the bottom of your feet, top of your head, like the inner space inside, and all that surrounds that inner space. So in a way, your own body is in itself an architectural body, and then you have the surrounding space around it as well. I'll take a little pause here. Yeah, and maybe noticed if there was something different happening inside of you, something new. Just what came up for you. So you yourself are an active element of your own surrounds. Like you change the surrounds is changing you. So we're going to do two experiential exercises where you interact with your surround. So for the first exercise, we all get up from our chairs and we move around the room. It may be a little bit challenging to get everyone back to their chairs, but maybe we can make like a time, I don't think 3 minutes, and can there be a sound coming? Maybe somebody can say that people, I'll get you back to your chairs. So we're all gonna go stand up. And
maybe,
what you,
maybe,
yeah.
maybe just 2 minutes, because then
Okay,
time to.
2 minutes, okay. So you're gonna stand up and move through your room and try to notice as many things as you can. And with all the tools that you have in your body, so you can feel the walls, you can feel the floor. I see somebody taking, yeah, you can take some props and some other tools. Just walk around, go crisscross, go different ways around your space and through your space. And also, I don't know if people can still hear me, but I'll just keep talking a bit. So yeah, make sure you use your eyes, your ears, your nose, your touch, and sense what's in front and behind and besides of you. And see how that is for your body. And now we're at 2 minutes, so we all get back to our chairs. And I hope that somehow that was like a different experience. I mean, it's not what we usually do every day. Like, you know, you kind of get so used to where you are. You take your environment for granted and you don't actually, you're not half, kind of half aware of it. So we want to, reestablish that connection. So the second exercise now is you just all sat down and you have to get up again and find an object in your room, and an object that kind of catches your eyes, something you would like to have right now. And then we do another like 2 minutes, and you just get to know that object like really inside out. You have to know all the details. It's as if you saw that object for the very first time. You never felt that material. You have no idea what it is, and you're like, wow, what's this? And so you just really connect to that. Yeah, so we're kind of ending this part, and maybe you can notice for yourself what stood out most for you, what that brought up in you. Did it bring up any memories or any felt senses or whatever came up? Okay. So we're all done now. So the idea of doing this yeah, it would be really, your body is part of its surroundings, right? And if you're really getting aware of that and aware of your surroundings, it's kind of extending your own body, and it can really, you suddenly got yourself, a whole set of new tools and experience that can help you, with your focusing and with what's happening inside. And as you are aware of it, you can also start making small changes. And this is our last little exercise. The object that you just had in your hands and that you kind of got to know, you're going to take it and you're going to put that in a completely different location, somewhere in your room. So go ahead and do that. Okay, I see a few people still walking around with their objects. Oh, everyone back? Okay, everyone is back. So you'll notice later on, when we go in the breakout rooms, and I don't know if we even have a pause or something, but you'll notice later on when you walk in your room, you'll notice very strongly that your room has changed somehow, because that object that always used to be there is now in another place, and also you have really connected to that object, and so you just change your surroundings, and it will also change your own experience. I don't know if we have time. Yeah, we have a little time. We'll do one last thing, and that is not moving an object, but moving yourself. And I know we've been moving around to explore the room, but now we're moving around and put ourselves in a very different position. My favorite way to do this is go stand up on a table. But I won't make you do that, any risky things. I don't want people falling off the table, but I can recommend it, or take a ladder another time, because it's such an amazing feeling to be suddenly in a totally different area of your space. It's like being on top of a mountain and looking down, and you have a whole different feeling inside your body. It's amazing. But now, for now, we are going to do, either you could go stand on your chair, or sit under your table, or go stand in a corner and see what happens, and see how you experience the space. Okay. Okay. Still see a few empty rooms, empty. People climbing down. Great. Well, that was it. I don't know if it makes any sense to you. It's just an introduction and really, trying to share this idea about an architectural body and how you can interact with your surrounds, how you change if your surround changes, and that's really the essence also of the architecture that Arakawa and Gins invented. And that's also what's really my my passion about is that with architecture you have the power to make changes in people's lives, really profound changes. And also people, not just architects, have that power, but also everyone can do it in their own house. Arakawa Gins always said everyone is an architect, and even by doing a small thing, you can make yourself feel differently. So I understand we have a little bit time, Melinda, for sharing before we go into breakout rooms, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Doug has a question that he put in the chat. Is there any reference, could say more about the tentative procedure?
Could I say more about it? It's one of the procedures that, as I said, it's a way to make the connection between you and the architecture, kind of be in conversation, and it has an effect and it makes your body change and react to it, and at the same time it has an influence on the whole of you, so also on your mind, because you're being encouraged to let go of the standard thing to do, or to do what you always do, or it's a constantly kind of a encouragement and to move forward, to change, to be in a different interaction every time. I don't know if that makes it any clearer.
I think it does. Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Kind of combination question, comment. I'm curious about some of the thoughts within this body of work from I've kind of approached this similar techniques, right, from a different source. And what comes to mind for me are, the themes of space as holding environment, right, from a psychoanalytic perspective, right, and different folks' sense of safety and trust in themselves, that may relate to our attachment wounds and, how safe we feel, and building the capacity to feel safety in the container, right? Is that something that's part of the body of thought in this work explicitly, or not so much?
In a way, in some sense it is, because it actually the works, the architecture they built has somewhat of a container-like feel, So kind of creating a safe place in order to let all kinds of new things happen.
Right.
And also the safety is also for them, the safety of their architecture is that the space is readable. Like the person who's in the space can understand the walls and all the elements in the architecture are very distinct. There are lots of colors. And so it's an open floor. You can see, you have an oversight over the whole house. You can see in all the rooms. And that all contributes to that you, yeah, kind of, you can read the space. So that's how you can also more easily interact with it and also keep track of what's happening too.
Thank you so much, Yoka. It was a wonderful experience to me, and I'm just sort of getting my mind around this idea that the surround is me. I am interacting with the surround, but the surround is also part of my body.
Yes.
And this extended idea of body. I noticed when I stood up on this little stool that very different things were important to me than on the ground. Different parts of my apartment were important, and it was such a recognition of perspective as an actual experience. That if you're in a different place, different things are important to you. So what's important to you isn't a steady standard thing. Of course, that's important. It's all about where you're standing, what you're looking at, and how. So thank you. I wanted to ask, and I hope people will forgive my whatever it is. What do we mean by architecture? Like the way Jean would say, what do we want the word architecture to mean? I'm asking Yoka, but also maybe anybody else. I would love to hear what you say, Yoka, but also if anybody else wants to respond to that. It's one of those words that we take for granted, but when you put it in the context of this is your body, an architectural body, it's a whole different dimension. And then it makes me think, well, what do we mean by architecture?
Well, what came for me was how much my own perception is part of what the space is, or how I experience the space.
Yes.
I think the meaning for me of architecture would be something that somebody else is doing, like designing a space. And then I look at my space and taking your suggestions, it looks different. There's like different possibilities to move in it. And the body responds in a different way, depending on how I see it. And so I'm wondering how, my answer would be is that my perception is part of the architecture. Because I think we all know that experience of seeing a space in a certain way and doing certain things in it. And then it could open different possibilities if we see it in a different way. And I think the experience that on a bodily level, not just going up to the head to think, what can I do here? But all of a sudden experiencing the body to, I guess, inhabit the space in a different way. I think that's what I find interesting from your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Especially the moving around, it gives you constantly different perspectives, and everything is changing because you're moving around all the time, right? And I mean, you're not moving around all the time, but moving around and moving around with awareness of your surrounding makes it clear how nothing is the same and everything changes from moment to moment.
I feel like these days we are working on Zoom and we get to see people's spaces where they are working from, not just their body, but the entire space. And I think architecture is a verb in a way. It's a verb that that one has the ability to architect things in various situations and conditions to empower them more. I see people who are stuck together in small spaces in India due to COVID, how they are constructing their spaces. And here teenagers who are locked up in their rooms because they can't go to school and they spend so many hours in that space. I've seen their rooms being absolutely changed and they have created their own world there. And if you take it as a verb, it empowers you a little bit.
Yes, yes.
The concept of architecture, not as a, I don't know what that grammatical correct description, but if you use it as a verb, it empowers you, I think. And I don't think people are consciously doing it. They just have to do it to adjust their whole being in this space and time and condition and pandemic or what have you, I think.
Such good point, Shashi.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, I'm outside in a garden that I've been helping cultivate over a number of years, and we're constantly fussing with stuff and changing the architecture and changing the structure of stuff. Nature itself is a bit of an architect or architecture, but we constantly change its surroundings. And
Yes, and because you know it so well, you've been there for years and know every detail.
you start seeing all the
notice.
weeds when you look around.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, and even as springtime emerges, right, the tree environment come from these, things that you can see through into the distance, and then they thicken out and become enclosures, and the whole process.
Yes.
Garden is such a wonderful example of architecture because you're creating the garden and the garden is creating you, and the garden has its own life and you're co-creating it. And it's a wonderful example of that.
And I love the way it can shift the moods. When I was in the room and then I looked out the window, it shifted my feelings about how I was this morning. And I remember when I was designing a kitchen, I wanted to have a sense of nature in my house. So I made it very open on one side. Because I think, when we, depending upon where we are, with the architecture, it can shift our sense and our felt senses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the morning exercise. It was really good.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I even noticed the other day, just we have like a dark room in the house and we have a very light room. And nowadays, if me and my husband need to meet about something, we go sit in the light room. And I noticed that our conversations are going much, much better than being in that dark room. We had so many fights in the dark room. Yeah. Quite amazing.
I find this conversation really I don't want to say interesting. It's really affirming, because I notice I have my little laptop and I can move it from room to room. And my favorite place is where I am right now, where I can look at the woods and connecting with nature. And it's really interesting. And other times, if I go somewhere else, it does create a different interaction between me and where everything else. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel, maybe that's the architect in me, that's whatever that is, Lynn. But I feel we can even explore that so much more, the things we already notice, without going too much out of our way, but we already notice it. But what if we really, really work with it and really have that as our, a goal when making a room or making a space, or, have all these things in mind. I think it would be a different environment, a different garden, or a different architecture. Yeah.
I'd love to see if I heard that right when you said about, I think, opening spaces so you can read the spaces and so people can know what's going on in their environment. What a powerful concept, because, childhood architecture or past architecture was like box here, box there, closed space. And there's something about that is such a sense of opening and like exploding into the idea of secrets. It's harder to have secrets. It's an amazing concept, and then I thought against that, what about the need for privacy too? So just wondering about all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for making us move too. That was so good to move and go to different places. And I did go on the table and I'm outside. It was great. I just could see, I have a bird feeder and I could see the birds from above because the bird feeder is lower. I'm already on a porch. It was interesting because usually I see them from below, right? To see them from above was interesting. And also in terms of space and feelings, I always had this idea that a hospital should be really thought through in terms of architecture and open space and green space, and that I think people would heal much faster and better if that would be part of the hospital construction. So
yeah,
so I wanted to put that out there for some new architecture.
Yes. Yeah, really good point. Yeah, hospitals, one of the places that really also can use that, right? Because we're so stripped from everything. Yeah.
So thank you.
Something very empowering about thinking about the environment as part of your body and the growing awareness of the environment, of the details of it also makes us feel like that it belongs to us. The environment isn't something separate.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of taking care of the larger environment of nature, this is our body. This is who we are, and it possesses us and we possess it. It lives in us and we live in it. All of the taking for granted that we always do. I think you are challenging us, Yoga, to keep broadening our awareness of the things that we take for granted.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah. If you see your environment as really as part of yourself, you know, you almost can't do anything else than really pay attention to it, you know, if you really believe that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To feel like we're also the makers of our environment. I notice that even if I go to a hotel and I'm only going to stay there one night, I have to change the room around and put things just where I want them and put my own things on the bureau, and then I can feel like, oh, I'm there. If it's just the way it is when I walk in, I feel alien and I don't really feel myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
We always encourage the people who are new or the people who don't usually talk very much to say whatever is on your mind, because everything is welcome. We're just experimenting together.
I was very aware that when you were talking about architecture and spaces in terms of hospitals, I think Sophie started talking about that. When I was started out in a psychiatric hospital, I was so painfully aware how unconscious the planners were. They put like green walls with body size silhouettes, like black silhouettes on the walls. I guess they thought it was, artistic, to have these silhouettes, but we had people who were hallucinating and had all kinds of fears and trauma. And to see these large silhouettes attached to the wall on black, on green, to me was so unconscious and so painful that they were not aware that the impact of what they were putting out there. So when you walk into a space, you know whether or not it's inviting or not, and you know where you want to rearrange things. So I think, being even more alert and conscious and deliberate seems just another layer of awareness, self-awareness, and also seeing how our patients fit into their space and their environment, and what to do to make them more own it or create it or redesign it, for themselves, psychologically and or physically.
Yeah.
I like the way you say own it, create it, and redesign it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be such a great project, right?
It would.
Or a project, it should be just common sense to always do that and integrate it into people's treatment, like, the making of the environment as being part of the treatment. Yeah, the healing. Yeah.
Well, they've done studies where in recovery rooms, if the rooms are light rather than dark, people come out of the recovery process much quicker.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's already a strong basis for success in redesigning space so that it provides a healing environment.
Yes. And that's also so interesting what both Arakawa and Jantlin are saying about the surroundings, and that it has everything. It has sound and smell and texture and everything. So there is so much to work with, not just an extra window here and there or something,
Right.
but use everything, use as much as there is. put it all to use and really create a real environment instead of just a couple of walls and a floor. Yeah, I think that's really exciting. And I always, when I first started studying architecture, I was always so fascinated by filmmakers, especially the early ones, how much attention they put into every detail, every sound, how the light comes, where it comes from, the rhythm, the sequence of things. And I thought, like, if you could do that as an architect, you would make wonderful places. Yeah.
And see you, Yoka.
Hi, Ayana.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
And how the largeness of this, concept, that it has to do with everything in our environment can be more healing, so thank you. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Ayana. Great to see you.
I'm thinking of for in many traditions, how important it is to make an altar in the home, or the architecture of spiritual spaces, and how that in different cultures and different times of history is more important than one's own houses, is the mosque or the church or the synagogue, and that it is you. I'm just thinking about how we have known this, that we are the environment and the environment creates us. We've known it, but we haven't made it explicit, and we forget it. And I feel like, Yoka, you're saying, well, remember this. Really put this to use.
Yeah.
And even when the physical environment is no longer there, like I was going to a church that burned down, and they've recreated, in other ways, the environment in a virtual way, or by remembering.
I was just going to ask what the prompt should be, if there is one, for when we go in the breakout rooms.
I think maybe just to share what we get out of this concept, because it's such a big concept of architectural body, and that we are our environment, and the implications of that for each of us. Just that whatever comes from this new way of thinking, people might share or ask questions or whatever comes up. And what do you say, Yoka? What do you want them to talk about?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And maybe that's my environment coming by. Yeah, maybe anything also, maybe anything you remember from what came up during these exercises.
Exercises, yes, right. We didn't get to share what
right.
came up in the exercise.
So I'll do this now.
So welcome back. Maybe, Yoka, maybe you could begin with what you noticed in your breakout room of where people took these ideas.
Yeah, people were, they had become a little bit more aware of their environment, kind of their own places, or how certain elements in their surroundings, how they affect their lives. We had, for instance, we talked some about sound. Interesting talk about sound. June brought up how she was bothered by the gardeners' noisy machines, and we talked about also what could be done about it. We came with all kinds of architectural and non-architectural solutions. And Ulla had a very beautiful solution, like try to love the sound or try to connect it with it in a loving way, right? So that was very interesting. Yeah, one part of this whole surround.
I'm hearing a siren out my window, and maybe you're hearing it too as
Yeah.
talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to hear if other people, what they got from it or didn't get from it, or what would have liked more of it.
One of the things that I got from it is that to look at it from a frame of architecture, I found it very empowering. That to know that we can be our own, to be conscious that we can be our own architect of our own internal and external space. Very empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
It was good to see when we did the exercise that even a small change can make, a big difference. I think that's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was noticing how well the Arakawa and Gin's work and Jane's understanding of the felt sense go together. Like when I took my object and put it in a different place, there was the feeling of, is the felt sense of, is this the right place? Is this the right place? And then the body feeling of what the right place is. And the designing of one's home with the body sense of what is right for us. It just adds a whole other dimension that seems to fit just exactly.
Yes.
There's somebody, I forget her name, who says, you should only have in your house what brings you joy, and that you ask each object, is this bringing me joy? So that's another way to look at it.
What came to me is the importance of architecture, how it is important in our lives, even if we don't realize it. We gave the example, the architecture is nice in my building, but inside the walls are quite soft, and I can hear sometimes my neighbor. So so what the architect decided, or the builder. So we can change our external environment to a point, and then we have to interact with people. So it's an action, that it's interaction architecture, and how nature also is changing the architecture. We think that, for example, a church is forever and then it's burned down, and then nature comes over and we build something, and maybe in 3D again, and so it's part of the way of life, and also the responsibility the architects have. And I'm happy that the person
when the architect is a woman, might put more toilets for the woman than if they were a man. The joke when we go to museums, well, the architect was a man. You know? So this topic shone the light on how much we are impacted and how we like some towns or countries because they have nice architecture and we visit them and all of that. So the importance that we have to pay to architecture. So I really enjoyed that sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it would be also interesting. What if a psychologist or a psychiatrist would design a building, you know, or an interior, because yeah, I had to think of that when you said like men and women probably design very different architecture. And I know that Arakawa Ginsberg, they were always saying that we should be part of a whole team, you know, it can't be just one person, like there should be a physician, there should be a psychologist, there should be a musician, there should be a dancer, like people of all different areas should be as a team and work from there.
It's a lovely metaphor, the metaphor of the architect, because I think that automatically implies that we try to maximize the environment in ways that are functional and in ways that are aesthetic. And that, I think that gives us a lot of power to use our environments, like the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi. Yeah, brought that up for me too.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that you brought up the wabi-sabi idea, because nothing can be taken for granted of what's beautiful, what's not beautiful, what's aesthetic, what's functional, because it's an interaction with us. And so the idea of the old, the dilapidated, the falling apart being beautiful in the wabi-sabi aesthetic is such a lovely sort of balance to our American, you know, new aesthetic.
What does wabi-sabi mean?
Do we have any Japanese? I know it in terms of art, that it's the appreciation of what's decaying, what's old, what's
the imperfect.
The imperfect.
Yeah.
The falling apart.
And the transient, I think, all of that. It's quite hard to pin it down to a definition. It's kind of more like a sensibility.
Yeah.
My new theme, right?
And Nick shared in chat that he worked on a video about Gins and Arakawa, and he gave us the link, the YouTube link.
Oh, how
really? You did?
Wow.
Well,
great, Nick.
Last year, the Siglio Press put out a Madeline Gins reader, which collected all this out of print poetry and stuff.
Yes, yes. Oh, and you did the video for that?
Yeah, it's like a reading from that, and she talks a lot about their park and some of the projects they worked on.
Yeah.
It's really fun to do all the research for that.
Wow, interesting.
And it's nice to hear it in her own voice. So that, yeah, I liked it.
What a wonderful resource. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lynn, I'm looking at the time. I was wondering if it's time for Dorothy to.
Time for Dorothy. Thank you, Melinda.
Hi, everyone. I'm returning to David White, the Irish English poet. And once again, he likes to repeat lines when I've ever heard him, and I love that idea. So some lines will be repeated. It's called In the Beginning. Sometimes simplicity rises like a blossom of fire from the white silk of your own skin, from the white silk of your own skin. You were there in the beginning. You heard the story. You heard the merciless and tender words telling you where you had to go, telling you where you had to go. Exile is never easy, and the journey itself leaves a bitter taste. But then, when you heard that voice, you had to go. When you heard that voice, you had to go. You couldn't sit by the fire. You couldn't live so close to the live flame of that compassion. You had to go out in the world and make it your own. You had to go out in the world and make it your own. So you could come back with that flame in your voice saying, listen, this warmth, this unbearable light, this fearful love, it is all here. It is all here.
Wow.
Beautiful, thank you.
So much, Dorothy. And now we're going to say goodbye. All of us can unmute ourselves and say whatever we want all together. And thank you so much, everybody.
Au revoir.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Yoga.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Yoki.
Bye.
Nino.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
Bye.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
What a great presentation, Yoka. That was so fun.
Yeah, did you like it, Nick?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It
Thanks.
was wonderful yoga. And I think people really appreciated it. It was really good.
Thank
Everyone
you.
was shocked they could get up and move around. Freedom from Zoom.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
It's such a rich topic. I mean, you could talk so much about, like this COVID reality of the architecture being on a screen and like these virtual backgrounds we have. Just it's such a rich topic.
Yes. Yeah. It's asking for more, right? Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye-bye, June. Be well.
Bye-bye, everybody. I'll see the
Bye.
plant people at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.